Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the special Boone County Board meeting at 5:53 p.m. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a quick invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, please be with us this evening as we make decisions for our community and guide us all home safely. Amen. Amen. Roll call, please.
Carl Johnson.
Here.
Sherry Giesky.
Hey. Here, I saw you counting and I was going to say, here.
Sherry Bartell. Here. Ryan Curry.
Here.
Ready to the Trinity.
Doo-doo.
Here.
Ray Larson. Brett Mueller. Rodney Riley.
Here.
Ryan Robertson.
Here.
Tom Walberg.
Here. All right. As for motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Curry, second by Ms. Giesky. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. There are no minutes to approve. Any public comment? Seeing none. Only item on the agenda really is, I would ask for a motion to approve Alyssa Patterson to fill the vacant seat for County Board District 2. She was the highest vote getter that is not currently on the board in the primary. So I'd ask for that motion. Ms. Giesky, by Ms. Giesky, seconded by Mr. Robertson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any board member comments? We don't need executive session. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Robertson, seconded by Ms. Bartell. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Quickest county board meeting ever. We got 2 minutes, so let's
roll it.
Committee of the Whole Finance, Thursday, July 14th at 5:58 and 30 seconds. So we're close.
We have to keep this short for bills, so no extra.
Right, we can just run right down the line. I'm good. Let's start with roll call. Carl Johnson here. Sherry Gieske.
Here.
Dave Wiltsey is missing. Ray Larson is missing. Brett Mueller is missing. Ryan Curry. Here. Tom Wahlberg.
Here.
Bill Robertson.
Here.
Jerry Bartell.
Here.
Rodney Riley.
Here.
Freddie De La Trinidad.
Here.
Perfect. That's for a motion to approve the June 2nd Committee of the Whole Administrative Meeting Minutes and the June 9th Committee of the Whole Finance Meeting Minutes.
So moved.
Second.
By Mr. Robertson, second by Ms. Gieske. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Curry,
Second.
second by Ms. Bartelt. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comment. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none? Perfect. Ms. Gieske, meeting is yours. So just a note, I went through a full meeting and the first part of this meeting in record time. So if things slow up, I'm not in control anymore.
So the gauntlet has been dropped, but you know what? I'm gonna pass it. Tonight is Kurt Newport night, so the load is on him to keep it short.
There we go.
How about the treasurer's report?
I never had a night named after me before. Out of respect for the fact that I do have a presentation to give in a few minutes, I'm going to be, my treasurer's report is going to be really as brief as it can be. We all know that interest rates are changing rapidly, and that has had some effect on the county's investment portfolio. And I intend to give you a more complete report about all those changes next month. So I'm just going to hit the highlights this month. Our balances are up significantly. Two reasons. Number one, there was a property tax distribution in early June. That was the second distribution that was made. And secondly, we received the second half of our American Rescue Plan Act ARPA money in late June. That was over $5 million. So those two events combined are the reason why our balances are up significantly. General fund up $768,000 and all funds up over $7 million. What else to relay? As we can see, there are still a few funds that are in negative territory, the tort fund, and a few others that with minor negative balances. The tort fund will get up into the black when additional tax distributions are made. So I think I've distributed something like 55% of the property tax money for this year so far. So the rest will come in late August, early September, and early November. As you can see by the investment pool numbers there, the weighted average rate did take a healthy jump, went from 0.57% up to 0.9. It'll be higher next month, and we'll have a lot more to talk about there next month. The weighted average maturity as of the end of June was shorter, down to 200 days, which anything more than half a year is, probably longer than usual. So that is also getting longer as I invest funds in CDs. So again, more comprehensive report next month, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Kurt? I tell you, every time you give a report, I hold my breath because heaven knows what's going to happen like tomorrow, right? In this crazy market we're in. No more questions for Kurt? Thank you. Let's move on to the administration report, the monthly financial report from administration. We can take a look at it. Wait, let's see, we got it up there, right? Dan, of course, is off vacationing. Good for him. He deserves it. And does anybody have any comments that we could get lob out there or questions? I think that if we have any of them, we can probably pose them to Dan next Thursday night. Just to say, the revenue is up 8%. I can't go much further than that. But I'm going to ask Kurt, our ARPA funds are in a separate account, right?
Yeah.
They're in a separate account and they're not as restricted as they were at one point in time. There's some way we can get them into the general fund, right? I think that didn't sound like a very good.
They have opened up some new
Right.
avenues
Right.
for uses of those funds, although I'm not the expert on that.
Yeah, I'm not either, but what I'm going to say is that we've talked several times about taking a look at the compensation levels for our staff. And we've talked about some shortages in employees that we have in the county, and might be the time, but most importantly, doing some capital improvements. So we've got something to show for the money that we got. So at some point in time, we'll be having that conversation, right? Okay, let's move on. Highway engineer, 6.3. Justin, come on up in case there's any questions that aren't answered by all the materials you gave us. Go ahead.
I'll keep it short. Kurt's night. So as I reported last month, pavement marking, the paint that goes on for the striping has not been received yet, where it's not sounding good that we might hopefully get 50% of what we ordered, but there's still no guarantee that that's going to happen. It's just another material issue. Last June, well, feels like it was a long time ago, I guess, but a few weeks ago, I attended a bridge bundling seminar. I was asked to go to this by the Federal Highway Administration, and I was the only one from Illinois. They ended up asking me to speak. I spoke at it. They paid for all the costs and everything, so it went well. We're seeing, I haven't actually put the numbers together until the night before when they asked me to speak. We're seeing a 40% savings by doing our bundling project, and that is Mill, Capron, and Denny Road, the three bridges that we're doing. So that's a positive thing. Hopefully on the construction side, we'll see a lot of savings as well. Material bids, we just got approval. We had a federal grant to replace the Poplar Grove Road Bridge over Beaver Creek. And if you recall, that was like a $2.3 million grant. We're using some state money as well in that. We have been approved to do a material bid letting because of all the material issues that are going on. So we are going to bid this year. I'm just putting it together now. Hopefully have that out in the next month or so. So we're going to purchase the rebar and beams for the bridge so that the bridge we stuck without materials to build that bridge back in place again. Those are the two primary components that people are having a hard time with. So that's a positive thing, at least to counteract the negative material issues. Item number 4, the overhire, we're putting that on hold for many different reasons. So that's on hold right now. Construction projects, right now we're in the middle of kind of our resurfacing projects. In fact, if you want to see it, it'll be working till dark tonight on Genoa Road. That should be done. It's probably going to rain tomorrow, so they'll hopefully finish on Saturday. And then next week we will do Bloods Point down in Flora Township, and then we are heading up to Dawson Lake next week. We do Dawson Lake, Quail Trap, and then a few roads within the village of Capron. So, barring any, significant weather issues next week, we should be done at the end of that week, or perhaps maybe 1 or 2 days the following week. So everything's going pretty well with that. I did want to just update the board on IDOT US 20 path project. There have not been any takers on the maintenance that IDOT has requested the local agencies to take over the maintenance of the path between Belvedere and Rockford or Winnebago County. If you recall, IDOT said they would build it, but then they want to turn it over to local agency. And basically, we haven't been able to make that happen, which is very typical. So they're going to abandon the bike path idea as of today. It sounds like that's, they're going to switch gears and basically do an improved shoulder, which, that has its own positive benefits rather than a bike path. So that's everything I have.
Any questions for Justin? Brian?
Do we not want the bike path simply because of the maintenance required?
Yeah, we want the bike path. I think everyone can agree that, more infrastructure for transportation, whether it's pedestrian or bicyclist, is a positive thing, especially making that connection. So we're all on board with that. However, the way that taking we're all hesitant about taking over a facility within a state jurisdiction and maintaining that. That's something that I really I don't really support, and it would pull some of our funds for our infrastructure projects within our own right of way that we're responsible for. And now taking that responsibility within somebody else's right of way is something that is not very common. And IDOT does try to do that frequently, but especially for counties, that is very uncommon for that to happen. So,
Brian?
There's no reimbursement program from IDOT if we were to maintain equipment hours, anything like that. Since it is technically theirs,
right. No, in fact, that's actually what they're trying to get out from under this, is that, they've done that, if you recall. Well, it was probably like 2017. We had a big issue with, within Illinois 76 right away. They have stop signs at, Hunter Road, Manchester Road. Those signs get hit, those have flashing beacons on top of there. IDOT says, hey, we'll maintain, they're required to maintain the sign and the post and that sort of thing. They said, we're not required to maintain the beacon, so we don't want that. You guys, need to maintain that. And, so they're doing the same thing with culverts at intersections, and there's quite a few of our local roads that intersect a state route within that state right of way. There's a discrepancy, and it's not consistent throughout IDOT's different districts, but District 2, their maintenance that maintains the roads, they will not maintain those culverts within the right of way if we have a side road coming in. And so there's this battle is being fought on many different fronts, and I don't support taking over any facilities within IDOT right away, because it just we're battling it on many different areas.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Justin, where was the bundling conference?
Silva, North Carolina.
So you made Boone County and Illinois proud?
Well, it's kind of funny, because when I got there, they're like, you're from Illinois. I'm like, yeah. And they said, well, can you tell us anything about your material inspections? I'm like, yeah. So it ultimately comes down to, it's kind of a long story, but Illinois is in trouble by the feds for Illinois' past practices of material inspections, and the feds are coming down on it. So I got a lot of firsthand information on that, because we get everything through IDOT. So it was kind of a worthwhile discussion with them on that aspect. But then even on the bundling side too, there's a lot of things that IDOT says that we can't do, and of course you can do that. That's why it's set up that way. And so there's a lot of interesting things that occurred, and the feds are pushing that. And one of the benefits is, you hear a lot of infrastructure money being thrown around. There's a lot of money just in general being thrown around, but a lot on the infrastructure side. And there's actually specific programs that we will be applying for. And it sounds like I don't know if I was misreading some of the discussions, but it sounds like we have a good chance of getting some of these funds for this project yet, that are specifically tied to bundling. And so, the one thing, I've kind of gone through different stages of looking for funds for infrastructure. At first I was, looking, trying to increase the tax base, and then going after grants. And I think now looking at bundling, both those first two options are basically, still taxpayer money. It's still pulling money in from, our taxpayers. The bundling is, in my eyes, is completely different. That's just doing the work more efficiently and effectively. So you're really not impacting the tax base and the users at all. You're actually doing the work more efficiently. And so to me, that's, kind of a no-brainer. And this is definitely a worthwhile endeavor to try to do this. And if we can see the kinds of savings that we're potentially seeing, because mobilizing cranes, that's a very expensive process, going out and doing all this work. If you can do it at the same time, sometimes there might be a cut here, there might be material needed here and material needed there. And so if you can balance those out, and saving on trucking and, there's different, many different things and even, signage and maintenance of traffic, those kind of things. I can go on and on, but there's a lot of different areas where, it's not impacting, the taxes or grants, all those are the same thing. This is completely different. And I think that, hopefully we'll see some positive things out of it.
Well, actually, I think you are impacting the taxes because you're going to let those have more money to do more projects.
Sure.
So you did tell those folks in South Carolina that absolutely none of what they're talking about in Illinois could be true, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And finally, I can attest they're working on Genoa Road because I went through there about 6 o'clock last night. They were still working. I said, what the?
It rides great. And that should be a good project when it's done.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, Bill. Let's see, subject 7.1. Kurt, you're up.
It almost became Justin's night, but I think the mic was on, so.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second, if you don't mind. I also would like to point out in the audience, we have Clint Morris, Mayor of Belvedere. I think everybody knows who you are, and John Wolf, who is also on the Land Bank Board. He represents Belvedere, where I represent Boone County. And I will include them in discussions tonight if they have questions. With that, Kurt?
Very good. So I volunteered to talk about the county trustee program, tagging on behind the presentation you heard last month from the folks at R1. So go ahead with the next slide, please. Who's running the show? Is he? Okay. The previous county board chairman once asked, why does it take so long? Why is it so complicated for government to get its hands on property that's obviously abandoned and get it into the hands of a new owner? Well, it's that pesky thing called the Constitution, the Fifth Amendment of which says that government can't take a property without due process. So what I'm about to describe is the due process according to Illinois statutes. So, next slide. And I'm going to apologize for how long this takes, but it's impossible to understand how a county trustee program works without understanding the tax sale process that it's built on. So we have to start at the tax sale and go from there. And I'm going to try to just not go into the weeds too much here, but it's important to understand a basic understanding. Tax sale is an auction that is held every year where delinquent parcels are offered to tax buyers. What the tax buyers receive after they pay the taxes, penalties, and costs that are owed on that parcel, they receive a tax lien certificate. They don't receive title to the property. They receive a tax lien. The certificate has a 2.5-year redemption period. So the property owner has 2.5 years to redeem that certificate. In other words, to pay back the tax buyer everything that he's invested in that parcel with interest. The maximum interest rate starting this year is 9% per 6 months or an 18% annual rate. Legislature just last year cut that in half. It used to be 18% every 6 months. So now it's 9 going forward. And that's going to be significant a few minutes down the road when we start talking about redemption interest. So typically, more or less 0.5% of our county's total tax bill goes to tax sales. So out of $100 million in taxes that I bill out every year, we're selling maybe $500,000 worth at the time. Okay, next slide. When a tax buyer has a certificate on a parcel, if that parcel is delinquent the next year or the year after that, he can go ahead and pay those subsequent taxes, and those subsequent taxes get added on to his certificate. So it just gets added on to the same account of that tax buyer, and it just costs more for the property owner to ultimately redeem them. The interest rate on the subsequent taxes is 12% per year. County clerk processes those redemptions. And if it's not redeemed in that 2.5-year period, basically the tax buyer's only recourse is to pursue a tax deed through the court. So he has to foreclose on his lien and petition the court for a tax deed. And there are a lot of other things that he has to do in the meantime to keep that tax lien certificate valid, and we'll go through some of them in a few minutes here. So tax buyers generally it's a very specialized investment. Generally speaking, they don't want the property. They don't have the resources to deal with acquiring hundreds of parcels of property. They want the tax certificate to be redeemed with interest, and they make a profit on that interest. That's their deal. Okay, next slide. So, what's the problem? The problem is that tax buyers aren't interested in everything. Low value parcels such as subdivision lots, typically the tax buyers won't bid on those because there just isn't enough money to be made there. It's a small tax bill, so whatever interest they might make isn't worth the administrative costs and all the paperwork involved. Then you have no value parcels. For example, if you've got a busted down old house that needs to be demolished and the cost to demolish it would be more than what the lot is worth, okay, they're not going to touch it, or at least they're going to try to avoid those. We've got a few parcels with hazardous waste on them. There's other things that will make a piece of land worthless, okay? So the tax buyers aren't going to go after those. So we have to have a way to take control of this, and it's typically abandoned property now that we're dealing with. So go to the next slide, please, Izzy. So the solution that's been in part of the statute for 28 years now is the county trustee program. Since 1994, it provides an option for the county as a trustee for the taxing districts to acquire a tax lien in the absence of other bidders. So if nobody bids on this parcel, the county as trustee gets the certificate. And it gets it at the maximum interest rate, which used to be 18% every 6 months. Now it's going to be 9%. We don't pay anything for this. But if it does redeem, then that money does go to the taxing districts where it would have gone all along. So it creates a trust for each parcel, where the county and the county board is the trustee, meaning you have the fiduciary responsibility to act in the best interests of the beneficiaries of the trust, which is the taxing districts pro rata. So the county doesn't own this stuff. That's an important point to make. The county's a trustee with a certain responsibilities. Again, if the parcel is not redeemed, then our agent will go to court and we'll get tax deeds on those parcels and then offer them for sale through a sealed bid auction process. So next slide. So I don't know how well you can see that, but the left side there represents what happens when a tax buyer gets the parcel. So the buyer pays the taxes, penalties, and costs. And normally one of two things is going to happen. Either the property owner redeems it, pays him back, and everybody's happy. Or if it's not redeemed, he can petition the court for a deed. There is a third scenario that is kind of the Achilles heel of this process, and that is the sale in air. That's that square there with the red letters. And the statute says that If the improvements on the property have been substantially destroyed or rendered uninhabitable, that after the tax sale, that the tax buyer can petition the court for the sale in error. And if the court grants that petition, I'm required to refund his money. That's taken back, basically taken back from the taxing districts. The next time I do a distribution, it's deducted from that. And it goes back, the taxes go into forfeiture, it'll go on the next tax sale, and it gets recycled through the process. If your treasurer is doing his job, that only happens once, because all I have to do at the next tax sale is tell them this property has a history of sale and error. That's all I have to say. The tax buyers won't touch it, and it'll go to the trustee. Admittedly, I have missed a few over the years, and there have been some parcels that have cycled through the process and received more than one sale and error. But I think I'm doing a pretty good job now, and we try to catch them. So the John Deere side of that with the green tax, that's what happens if it goes to the county trustee. Again, one of two things is going to happen. Either the property owner redeems it, and if it does get redeemed, the interest on that 9% per 6 months, that goes to our agent. If it doesn't redeem, then our agent will petition the court for a tax deed. We get an order for deed, and then we put it on our sealed bid auction and hopefully sell it. So those are that's the basic process. Okay, next slide.
Kurt, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
If it goes to the sealed bid auction, who gets the money for that sealed bid auction?
Okay. According to our contract with our agent, Joe Meyer and Associates, if it goes for the minimum bid, which is $797, that's $300 for the taxing districts. It comes to me for distribution. $450 goes to Joe Meyer, and $47 for a recording fee. That it's $450 up into, it's $450 or 25% of the sale price, whichever is more. So if the sale price gets up to $1,800 above that, then Joe Meyer's only getting 25% of whatever it sells for. Anything less than $1,800, they're getting $450. Okay. So this agent that I mentioned, that is Joseph E. Meyer and Associates. It's a company down in Edwardsville. They've been doing this for 28 years. They're currently serving 96 counties, including us. We've been with them for 12 years now. So the first 7 steps there, the stuff with the green text, that's what they do in order to acquire a tax deed. And there's a lot that the statutes require for the trustee or any tax buyer. There's certified notices that have to be prepared. There are title searches that need to be conducted, because before we take somebody's property, we need to notify other lien holders, other interested parties. So they prepare take notices that get sent certified mail, that get sent via sheriff's service. They publish the notice of petition for tax deed in a local newspaper, and they put together the petition in court that we for tax deed each year. So all the parcels in a given year that don't redeem, put them all together in one petition, and we go into court and we ask for tax deeds. And they send their lawyer to Boone County to do this for us. They don't bother our state's attorney's office. They're not asking for any help. They take care of this for us and acquire and get that court order. And then once we have a court order for deed, then steps 8 through 15. So what they do is first they prepare a catalog of all the property that we have for sale. Here's an example of one. It's got maps. They work with our GIS department, and they've got maps and pictures of most of the lots that they have for sale, okay? So they put together that catalog. They plant signs on parcels that are for sale. Okay, they're going around doing this, not our, this is Joe Meyer's people that are doing this. I don't think you'll see these in Candlewick because of the regulations that are out in Candlewick, but elsewhere in the county, you'll see these signs. This sign has Joe Meyer's phone number on it, okay? If people are interested in this property, they call Joe Meyer and they work with Joe Meyer. They don't call us, okay? They don't, it doesn't take any of our administrative resources to run this program. It's all done by Joe Meyer. They send postcards to adjoining property owners who might be interested in a vacant property next door. They advertise their sale in the local newspaper. When they receive the bids, they determine the winning buyers. They deposit those checks. They correspond with the winning buyers. They prepare the resolutions that you guys approve when we sell these parcels. And then once the board does approve those resolutions, they prepare the deeds to get the property transferred to the new owner. That's an abbreviated list, okay? There's more that they do. There's more steps in the process. I'm just hitting the highlights there, okay? But all that is, the green stuff is all required by statute to get a tax deed. And then the black stuff is the steps that they take in order to market this property, okay? They do this without charging the county anything. They have two sources of revenue. One is the redemption interest. So if a parcel redeems, they get whatever interest is paid. And then the $450 per parcel that I mentioned earlier. So that's where their revenue comes from. So it's either coming from the property owner on redemption or it's coming from the property buyer. Okay, next slide. This is where it gets a little confusing, and so we'll go through this, but this table here shows all of the parcels that have gone, where it says purchased at tax sale, that's tax lien certificates that went to the county trustee. And then it's next to it, the number that redeemed, okay? And from those redemptions, we have the amount of taxes, penalties and fees that get collected along with the redemption interest that went to the agent. So all those dollars there are from the redemptions. Property owners redeeming their own property, paying back the tax buyer, which in this case is the county trustee. Now, the average there, you can see it, the redemption interest averages over $17,000 to the agent. The problem is those two lines that are yellow are real anomalies. 2010 and 2019, what happened was there were developers, subdivision developers, that for whatever reason failed to pay their taxes. And hundreds of parcels went to tax sale. And then eventually either the developer got straightened out or his lender stepped in or whatever, but they redeemed those. Hundreds of parcels, relatively low value, hundreds of parcels. And that was a tremendous windfall for Joseph E. Meyer, no doubt about it, okay? That's not likely to happen again, okay? Those are anomalies. So I went ahead and I calculated the averages without including 2010 and 2019. And when we take those 2 years out, the average redemption interest that went to our agent was $7,700. Okay. Again, that's when we're selling it at 18% per 6 months. So that's going to get cut drastically going forward when we're selling it at 9%. Okay. One more slide of numbers and then we can stop and talk about this if you want. Okay. So these are the surplus property sales totals. And Joe Meyer sent me this data, and I don't know if it includes it was last month when he sent it to me. I don't know if it includes the 4 parcels we sold last month or how up to date this is. But the commission they're getting on these sales is averaging about $6,200 a year. Okay. So based on these last two slides, if I'm going to try to project how much our agent is going to receive from this program going forward, I'm going to guess, okay, $6,200 in commissions, $5,000 or $6,000 or less in redemption interest. So we're somewhere in the neighborhood of, $11,000, $12,000 a year, which to me doesn't seem like a tremendous amount of money considering all that they do for us and all the work that goes into this program. Any questions on these last two slides before I go forward? Tom?
In 2020, was that just anomaly or was that because the pandemic was only 3? I mean, there was 2 outliers there, I thought, in the last slide.
Back up one page, please, Izzy.
17 and 20 look like the outliers there. 9 1 year and 3 the other.
The honest truth about 2020, we had some amateur tax buyers here that didn't know what they were doing and they were buying stuff that they probably shouldn't have bought. So there was parcels that normally would have gone to the trustee in 2020. And again, that's tax year 2020, so it's just actually last fall's sale. But the tax buyers are gonna have to deal with that because they bought the stuff, so.
Yeah, my question was, it was so much lower than your 10-year average of 40.
Yes. Yes, yeah. Very few parcels went to trustee last year, okay? And partly it was that tax buyer situation. Partly is, I think we're starting to run out of junk. We're starting to get to the point where the parcels that are unwanted are now in the program. Okay.
Questions for Kurt?
Okay.
Questions from John or Mayor?
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
So, on your IGA with Joseph Meyer, your redemption interest, you said is 9%.
Okay.
Was that changed? Was it 9 or 18?
Okay. So what has changed is the state law that lists what the maximum rate is, okay? It used to be 18% per 6 months. And whenever it went to trustee, it goes at the maximum rate. So up until now, it's accrued 18% every 6 months, anything that redeems, okay?
The redemption interest is actually 18%.
It's 18% on the first year. If they buy subsequent taxes in year 2 and year 3, that's at 12% per year. It's complicated, and the rate on the subsequent taxes hasn't changed, but the rate on the initial tax sale has been cut in half by state law.
And, so when there's any agent fee that goes with the sales, that's 25%, is that right?
It's, okay, so the agent commission, when we sell it, it's $450 or 25%, whichever is greater. So it's $450 until you get to an $1,800 sale, and then it's 25% from that point on.
And then those fees, how are those fees distributed? Where do they go? Do they go back to any of the taxing bodies?
Yes. So, for example, if our minimum bid is $797, $47 is a recording fee, $50 for Joe Meyer, $300 comes to the county collector. Okay. And I can take from that, I can hold back some of that to pay for the cost of the program, but the majority of it is distributed to the taxing districts. So there are a few other costs of the program, such as the cost of mailing out the notices and the cost of the sheriff's service and publication, the actual, invoiceable costs involved that any taxpayer has to pay. We're paying for that, and that's coming out of that $300 per parcel. Okay, but the rest of that is going to the taxing districts.
John? Anyone else? Rodney?
Just a quick note. I'm kind of bouncing back and forth because I had a lot of notes from last June 9th meeting. And I'm comparing, I went back to board docs and I pulled up the program to do a little bit of comparison with what the Northern Illinois Land Bank versus the county trustee. And I urge everybody to take a look at that. From last finance meeting, if you pull up in board docs, you'll see the packet that they put out. I'm just going right along with what you're talking about, Kurt, just kind of looking at the two. And it's a very last page, and it talks about a lot of the things that you're talking about right now. So I'll probably have more questions on that as we go along, but just so everybody knows where I'm coming from on this. If you don't mind, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right, Izzy? From last, all the way to the back.
Oh, go ahead, ma'am. You can see him, Kurt, on the column.
Would you mind if I had that information and I have it here in a hard copy? Would you mind if I shared it with the committee?
Sure, I mean, it's public information, yeah, there was some obfuscation, let me say, last month with Mr. Dunn and Mr. Setter, because they were making two comparisons at once. They were comparing the county trustee program versus the land bank program.
Right.
And they were comparing Winnebago's county trustee program with them as the agent versus their previous agent on their same program. So it was confusing. But I mean, you look at this graph, timing of acquisition, 3 to 10 plus years delinquent. It shouldn't be 10 years. It should be 3 to 6, okay? But I mean, that's not what I'm talking about tonight, okay? That's land bank process versus the county trustee process, and it's kind of a different conversation. So, and you know, Mr. Dunn talked about that house on Nettie Street that recently sold, okay? That house was in the trustee program. In other words, the trustee had a tax lien certificate on it. Then the city condemned it, got a court order for judicial deed. And so from that point forward, it was in, you know, city, you know, transferred it to land bank. From that point forward, it was a land bank property, not a county trustee property. And I mean, that's an option that the land bank always has. If they want to take title to property, they have that option. So I think comparing the two just causes confusion more than anything else, to be honest.
Anything else for Kurt right now?
Okay, so I just have a few slides left, I think. Current inventory. Okay. Yeah, the inventory. As accurate as I can get it, we've got just short of 100 lots in Candlewood Lake. There's empty lots. And the rest is a mix and a mixed bag of various kinds of property that's worthless for different reasons. Okay. And we might be able to clean up some of those other 17 parcels if we work at it one by one. But the lion's share of our inventory is Candlewick lots. Okay, next slide. So this is, I had Tammy and GIS create this map of where these lots are in Candlewick Lake. The larger version has more detail to it. I've given this to the Candlewick management. I'm happy to give it out to anyone who asks. And I got a call a week or two ago from a realtor asking for, okay, what's your inventory? I sent them the list and I sent them the map. So they can do what they want. It's all public information. So, okay.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Say the land bank could take any of these properties?
So these are parcels that the county trustee already has a tax deed. So I would say if the land bank wanted them, $797, because we've already Joe Meyer has already gone through the expense of getting it this far and getting a tax deed to it. So I don't think we can talk to Joe Meyer's people, but I don't think we're going to be giving it away. But if they want them, minimum bid, sure. And honestly, acquiring a parcel for $797 is a lot cheaper than going through the judicial deed process. So.
Carl?
Isn't part of the reason we have so many in Kennewick that if you own a parcel in Kennewick, whether it's developed or not, you have to pay the association fees, you have to pay water and sewer and all those?
We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay?
It's changed.
Yeah, it has changed.
Yes,
It
okay.
used to be like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that has changed, okay.
All right, so one more slide. So I'm going to try to just put a lid on this. The vast majority of these parcels in our inventory were acquired during the Great Recession, okay? In a depressed real estate market where people that owned these lots in Kennewick couldn't give them away, okay? And there was a cost of ownership there. The tax bill, the HOA fees, and at one time, the water bill, okay? Nuts, but you could have a lot without so much as a spigot to hook up a hose and you were getting water bills. The water bill thing, they have resolved, okay? But in any way, you know, they didn't have any other option besides walking away from this property. But now we've sold a couple dozen of them here in the past year. The real estate market is improving. Like I said, I'm getting calls from realtors asking questions about that. So, you know, last month Winnebago County's here and they're talking about how successful they've been here in the last year or two selling property. So have we. And mostly it's due to the real estate market. You know, that house on Nettie Street, a very successful land bank process. Land bank got it, sold it for good money. The buyer took it, fixed it up, sold it for, what, $174,000. I mean, I got to think that he made money on it too. When it's profitable to flip houses, they sell, you know. When it's profitable to invest in subdivision lots, they sell. That's my editorial comment, I guess. But that's the county trustee program in a nutshell, and I'll be happy to answer any more questions.
Any more questions from the board? Mayor, John, anyone in the audience?
Or should I hand these out or should I give you?
Yeah. Yeah, you can bring them up here. I have some questions also, but I'll do them after. You can hand them out while I'm asking.
I'd be more than happy to save you the.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you. John, go ahead. You had a question.
Well, to Mr. Curry's comment.
That's probably what you were talking about, the current distribution of proceeds and then the proposed, how it works, and how it goes to the
Purchase. Excellent. You've got a 2.5-year process. It has to go because you own the lot.
It's the current
So redeem that.
proposed.
Land bank wants to be.
Bill? Yep. Yes, sir. That's the current on top and the proposed, how it works,
Cases.
the funds.
Is not, the lots at Kennewick are the anomaly because they're black. The house on Nettie is the example that is sat, has not paid taxes. It isn't.
All right, good. I think a bunch of you guys, it's time.
City of Rock.
You can go to see back and see it.
Houses. You can't get a decision. The average Prairie County probably has been $4,000 to $10,000.
Right.
They're buying homes. Not giving, but they're selling to a contractor. It's within the land bank's discretion. We've turned down higher offers because Love's Park Share, I believe, or South Beloit had dealt with a particular contractor that they didn't feel was reputable, that they didn't feel would carry on. The idea behind the entire purpose of the land bank is to take a property that's a problem and eyesore, is off of the tax rolls, and ultimately get it back on the tax rolls, get it to where it's collecting so that everyone accepts the piece of property. And you have somebody hopefully living in it most of the time. The other tenet that Sherry and I have been made very aware of from the very start is that unless they have a big pot of money built up through all the transactions that they do, they stay away from all commercial properties whatsoever. There are too many pratfalls, too many things that they have to deal with to be able to get that saleable. For the residential property, they can deal with that particular property. Nadia, if I'm not mistaken, there was a city program, grant money. Without the grant money to replace windows to the tune of $20,000, that probably would not have happened without all these things that fell into the case. But the land bank can't and won't go out and buy those properties. The sale and error, as Kurt has said, is one of the fallacies of that. If I own the property, I can pay the fees and all that stuff, but I can redeem that up to the 2.5 years. Land bank doesn't need that one.
Sure. I understand. Thank you.
Kurt, go ahead.
So just to clarify, I think, and I wasn't suggesting that the land bank can or should buy the tax liens. But theoretically, the land bank could buy any of these properties that we already have a deed to. Okay, I'm not sure why the land bank would, but that's, the land bank program and the trustee program are two separate programs, and they don't need to step on each other. I mean, the land bank, as evidenced by the Nettie Street property, if they see a property they want, they've got the ability to take title to it. So, whether it's in the trustee program or not. So I don't see a conflict there.
Well, let's make sure that we know the distinction. There's two different processes. One is the delinquent tax properties, and the other is the land bank where we're acquiring these properties and so on. So they're two separate processes.
Yeah.
And they're just overseen by R1. I have a couple questions. So I want to go back. Does Joseph A. Meyer do any online? Because I believe the entire program, that R1 is overseeing, or the land bank, that's all online. And so is there any online?
Okay. My best answer, and so I can say, they can go to Joseph E. Meyer's website and get the catalog. Okay, so that's available online. As far as the process, it's a traditional paper process after that point, after a buyer has decided what they want to buy. I do know that Joe Meyer has conducted auctions in different ways in other counties. I know that they have used other auction sites that are already out there and put some of the county's property on those auction sites. But I don't have the complete answer because I don't know what they do in other counties.
Mm-hmm. My next thing is back on, let me see, the slide where there were 17 properties. Okay, if you go back to the trustee, just the trustee deed inventory, the hazardous waste parcels and the non-buildable parcels, you said those 17, you said if we work at it, we might be able to do something about those. Tell me what that means.
So I went through and I looked at these. I mean, we have city lots in Belvedere. They're platted lots, but they have no access. There's no road to them. I think they're older. I think they've been around for a very long time. And I don't know why they're still taxable. And I think if we go to the city and show them where these lots are, maybe the city has some options. I don't know, but we probably should pursue those. There's one lot up in Poplar Grove. It's behind the old Eden Fruit building. It's behind a parcel that the Poplar Grove Township owns. Right. It's a very small patch of ground. Maybe Poplar Grove Township can take that. I don't know if there's hazardous waste on it. I don't know what the deal is up there. It's worth taking a look at. Then of course, you got your Parsons Casket Hardware, and I think there's 3 lots there. Contaminated soil. I don't know that, whatever the answer is, it's not the, it's got to be bigger than the delinquent tax process. So whether it's an EPA Superfund deal or what, I don't have an answer for that. So that, there are some parcels that shouldn't exist because somebody made a mistake writing a legal description. There are a few of these that are tiny triangles that ought to be part of another parcel, or they're a little sliver here that somebody didn't write a legal description correctly and it created this parcel. And the adjoining landowner doesn't necessarily want it because he thinks it's going to make his taxes go up, and so what do? I don't have good answers for other than that as long as the county trustee has a deed to it, taxable property, we're not spinning our wheels with tax bills and delinquency notices and running it through the cycle,
If I may, I just took a look at this redemption interest and I haven't had a chance to add it all up, but there's several $100,000 here that went to the agent and not to county. I haven't had a chance to add it all up.
Well, it'd be 17.5 times 12.
Well, I'm including the 58 and the 75 also.
Right.
But my point is, this is for 11 years. You had to guess in the 28 years that Joseph A. Meyer has been our agent, can you guess the total interest that they made off of us? Or could they give us a report of how much they made off of us? Or that's not a right way to say it, but you know what I'm getting at.
Okay, so we didn't contract with Joseph E. Meyer until 2010. That's when so this is the entire history of Boone County and Joseph E. Meyer, right here. That's all 12 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where the slide that says Joseph E. Meyer and Associates delinquent tax agent for 28 years. I assume our delinquent tax agent for 28 years.
They've been doing this work for 28 years, but in Boone County for 12 years. Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is the total amount. What was my other one? I want to go back to this whole marketing thing. While I certainly do appreciate that they do all this hard work and they do it by paper, it just seems to me, all this stuff is done by R1 and it's all pretty transparent. So your John Deere items there, the land, R1 is doing the exact same thing. I mean, this is statute, the
Right.
R1 thing. So
Right.
it's all the same thing. But when you drop down to how they do everything by paper, or basically, that's where I think we could find some real streamlining and perhaps, more efficiencies. Justin, a comment. The other question, and then I'll be quiet. How many of the Candlewick Lake lots, and I wish Dave was here, have ever been purchased and built on, to your knowledge?
You mean among these 98?
Yeah. Well, what you had, I think when I first met you, we had about 2, pounded it down. But how many of those have ever, what I typically see, and I think it's the same thing we're doing tonight, it's somebody next door buys it and then just creates a larger lot. But the point I'm getting at is it would be lovely if some of these lots were built on.
Okay.
Plus, there's houses up there too that have never been sold.
And I pray that someday the real estate market will justify going into Candlewick and building houses. I did ask Drew Bliss about, is anything going on up there? Since 2008, when the market crashed.
Right.
2 building permits. One is an old one and it's about to expire. They haven't built yet.
Okay.
And the other one is a brand new one that's still kind of pending. So nothing built, 2 building permits since 2008.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, Rodney.
I'm just looking at these comparisons that were handed out, and again, I know we're just seeing all this for the first time, and Kurt, I know you're seeing it for the first time, but if any of these or all of these are accurate, especially the proposed, we've been doing what we've been doing since 2010, like other things that need to change. I think maybe this is something we need to look at. I don't know whether there's a contract with Myers or exactly when we go about that, but I definitely think this is something that we need to look into. I mean, we've invested a lot in land bank with what they've been doing, and they've been doing very well. So, I mean, if this is something that they can help us out with and pick up, and obviously according to this paperwork, again, and I'm not saying this is 100% true, this was just handed to us, but you know, the numbers kind of speak for themselves. I think it's time we, as a board, we need to look at possibly doing something a little bit different here. That's just my thought.
Anything else? I guess my last request of you, Kurt, is I'll throw this out also to the chairman, perhaps he knows. I've never seen, and not that I have to, but I'm asking now, could we see what the contract is or how we ended up with Joseph A. Meyer? And did we go through a bidding process or whatever? Do you recall anything, Carl?
I have no idea how this happened. I think,
Yeah, we have a contract that the county board approved back in 2010. We did not go through a bidding process. Basically, to the best of my knowledge, there have been 3 companies that have done this work in the state of Illinois. Joseph E. Meyer. Ballinger Real Estate had, I think, up to 4 counties at one point, including Winnebago.
Right.
And it didn't go so well in Winnebago. And then R1 Planning. There might be a county or 2, the huge counties that run their own program. It's big enough they can hire their own staff, you know, DuPage or Lake or something like that. So that's, you know, there aren't many companies in this line of work. But we have a contract with Joe Meyer. I've got a copy of it. You know, if you want me to send it to you, I'd be happy to.
Well, I think unless I hear one or see one nod of the head, I think what we'd like to do perhaps is take a look at that contract. And I think we do need, with all due respect, Kurt, I know you well enough and you know me well enough that what we want to do is what is in the best interest of this county. So what we are going to proceed is let's get a look at that contract and let's see what a contract with R1 or MOU, I'm not sure how they do that. Let's take a look and see what benefits or deficiencies there would be. Is that fair is anyone on the board against that?
Yeah, I would say any entity that wants to be the county tax agent, submit a proposal to the board.
Yep.
We take a look at it.
Absolutely. Anything else for Kurt? Mayor, John, anything at all? Mayor, would you like to come up and speak at the microphone?
Well, you know what, I've been doing that all day, I don't know if I have.
Well, and you're gonna deal with Bill Robertson, but I'm trying to make everybody else take the heat from Bill.
Prolonging this meeting.
It's been a very pithy and informative meeting. Kurt, by the way, thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Sherry. Anyhow, I know that you guys were here for the discussion when R1 was here and as far as the trustee program. The land bank, I think John had commented on how that benefits, you know, the city. I'm going to speak for the city, but any municipality, any village regarding blighted property and how you get that, how the mechanism works so it's smooth. I know that, you know, some of the properties have set, I think this particular property on Nettie, I believe it was like maybe 12 or 15 years that property had been basically an eyesore and it wasn't able to move. But as far as the trustee part of it, what you have there is when I was at a meeting when this all, it was all new to me, and I was paying attention to what Winnebago County does and how their trustee program is through R1. And I had asked about that because I was confused. I thought that money was going back to the taxing bodies. And I didn't realize that, and I'd asked for that, what you have in front of you, and I apologize. I thought I had made enough copies, but I know Carl will get you the second part of it. I do have one of them for you, but I didn't realize you had that many people on your committee. But when you look at it, it is, as the chairwoman said, it is about what you're doing to giving back to the community and essentially the taxpayers through the taxing bodies. All the taxpayers pay to the different taxing bodies. And what you have in front of you shows how much of those proceeds go instead of the agent, they go back to the taxpayers. And that's what they should do. And if we can do that, if we can find a mechanism, I really don't care who does it as long as the taxpayers benefit. And I think you would, I think you're the same way. I know that was stated by the chairwoman, and I think everybody in this room recognized that. Whatever's best for the taxpayers, we want to do that. So when you look at the distribution of proceeds, how the current way that it is done, you can see that a windfall goes to the agent. But you can see the proposed distribution of proceeds under R1 or a different, let's just say a different agent. When you look at that, that's divided up amongst the taxing bodies. And also then 63,000 on this proposed. This is what it would look like with that amount of money. But you can see that, at the very bottom then, the agent reinvests that for blight reduction. And you'll also see that absent on the proposed is the money that would, if they don't move these properties, that the cities or the villages or the county or whatever is on the hook then to demo it, or they have to deal with it. And it's like a one-stop shop. It may be fine that we've been doing it, that it's been going on this way or been done this way since 2012 or 2010. That may be fine. But the question is, can you do better? Can we do better? And I think that's a decision that the county board will make. And I think that's a great idea to have proposals so you can compare them apples to apples. But this is what I was given because it was unfathomable to me that, the taxing bodies actually were cut out. They were delinquent by, I think on that sheet you have, I'd given the last one out, but as memory serves me, it's around $57,000 in the red, where the taxing bodies on the proposed way to do it with a one-stop shop. And you have, as you said, you have a 21st century way of marketing. You market the property to more potential buyers. They can go to a website, they can shop, they can see, and that's exactly how you promote competition. People compete like that. And, for instance, we have a vehicle now from our fire department, and sure, it'd be great to put it in a local paper and have people and hope that people will call you on what you have for sale. But that's probably not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is we choose to put it online, and we get a lot better value for the taxpayer. So I think this in a certain way is like that. That's exactly what it is. But you folks will decide it, and I appreciate you having me here this evening. I appreciate your time looking that over, and I'm sure that when you go forward, you'll do your due diligence and you'll do it on behalf of the taxpayer, and whatever process is going to return money back to our taxing bodies. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And thank you again, Kurt. Okay, let's move on to two items. 7.2 is a resolution 2043, a sale of surplus property 03222550010002, and resolution 22-44, another sale of surplus property 0327128007. I'm looking for a motion to move both of these items to the board for approval. Motion made by Bill Robertson, seconded by Rodney Riley. Any other discussion? Thank you, John. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Let's see. 7.4 is South Piscasaw Creek Connection Path bid. Let's see. I'm looking for a motion to approve this connection, South Piscasaw Creek Connection Path bid to the low bidder, Stenstrom Excavation and Blacktop in the amount of $577,893.73. Move that to the board.
So moved.
Motion made by Bill Robertson, seconded by Sherry Bartelts, okay. Any questions? Justin, do you have does anyone have any questions for Justin? Carl does.
I don't have a question, but I just want to let everybody know that I'm going to abstain from all this discussion as Stenstrom Excavation is a big customer of our company, so.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Justin? Justin, anything you want to add beyond what you've got here already?
Just the fact that we did receive a $520,000 grant, something like that. So this, 577, I guess, is subtract out the grant. That's what the cost is then. So
$520,000 grant. So we're talking about $60 or 60,000.
60,000, yeah. And then that also is going to be split amongst
That's right.
a few agencies.
Okay. Let's see. We have to have a roll call on this one. Mr. Chairman, do you want to do the roll call?
You just sent it into the.
Oh, wait, that's right. We are. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
And one abstention.
And one abstention, Carl Johnson. Motion carries. Thank you. 7.5, probation department. I need a motion to approve purchasing cards for Michelle Villarreal and Brittany Andrews to be moved to the board for approval.
So moved.
Motion made by Ryan, seconded by Freddie. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And finally, 7.6 is a presentation by Amanda, or she's going to come up in case we have questions, for the Comprehensive Opioid Abuse Reduction Program Renewal Funding Gap. In other words, we're going to talk about floating the federal government alone. Have any questions you've seen the documents that are out there? Any questions? Amanda's here if you need more information. So is Carla. No? All right.
Anybody?
A motion?
Pardon?
Need a motion to approve?
I need a motion to move it to the board to approve the extension or the funding gap. Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Tom, seconded by Ryan. All right, now any discussion? Amanda, do you want to add anything? In other words, don't look a gift horse in the face. Is that right?
Any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I know. Go ahead, Carol.
Just this whole process with this, in case you haven't been on the board, when we've done this before with something similar with drug court, to help fill that gap when anticipated funding is hopeful funding in this case. But we filled that gap to keep the program, a beneficial program going. So I think this is we've set a good precedent there, and I think we should continue it here.
And go ahead, Rodney.
Real quick, how long is the gap usually? Do you have any idea?
Well, with drug court, it just depended. With this, I think we're waiting to hear back on grants. Is that correct, Amanda?
Yeah, so this is our first time seeking renewal, because our first 3-year cycle on the renewal. They've been getting progressively farther and farther behind with their approvals. So in consulting with state's attorney and county admin, we thought that perhaps a 6-month recommendation within this proposal would be sufficient with a 3-month update for all of you. Heard anything, if you've got any indication as to when they'll be approving applications, et cetera. So hopeful that it'll be no more than 6 months. If it seems like it's going to take longer, we'll be back, I guess, to discuss it further. So.
And I think the other thing that's really important to know here is that the task force, Amanda, and all these folks that are working so hard are also looking for other grant opportunities in the unlikely event this doesn't come through. But I think also the last line here in the recommendation is that the county's pending opioid litigation settlement may be looked at to put towards this project also. Did I get that right?
Correct. Yep.
Tom?
Yeah, that was my question, Sherry. So thank you. So that's still in the works and that lawsuit?
Yes. Yes, it is. I think, Tricia talked about it. a month or two ago. Is that right, Carla?
Yeah, we don't know how much, there is a settlement's in the works. We don't know specifically how much money we're going to get yet, but yes.
And I think that's a very admirable use for it.
Yes,
Go ahead, Tom.
agree. That
Okay.
was the question around the question. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That motion will be on the board next Thursday. I think, do we have any informational items? Do I turn this back over to you, Carl, or do you want me to take it home?
You go right ahead.
Okay, I will.
Great job.
Don't point fingers and make fun. Intergovernmental reports, nothing. Informational items. There are some of those things that biosolids are being delivered, and since you folks taught me how to look them up online, I now know where they are. The assessment website, I now know where they are. Any comments on that? Nothing from UCCI. We have no executive session. I'm looking for one more motion, and only Mr. Robertson can make it.
Move, we adjourn.
Second by whom? Tom? Sure. All right, by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you all very, very much. Kurt, I can't